Padaaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So thank you all very much for joining today's session. We have been discussed from Shri Bhakti Aloka, which is a collection of 12 essays by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur on the second and the third verse of Shri Upadeshamrita, the 6 favorable and the 6 unfavorable items for one's progressing on the path of Bhakti, in which we are currently discussing the 10th essay, which is Tat Tat Karma Pravartanat, engaging in the duties which are prescribed for a devotee. So what are the duties that are prescribed for a devotee or a sadhaka? The 64 limbs which has been mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So we have been discussing 64 limbs, in which last week we covered this limb of a few limbs. Last week we covered Abhyuttanam, which is rising when the deity approaches in his deity form, riding on a palanquin or a chariot. So we have to get up to receive the deity. We have to follow the deity's procession as the deity is moving. And also we discussed about residing in places of the Lord, either a tirtha or a temple. This we discussed. And we also discussed the limb of parikrama, or circumambulating the temple or the garbhagraha or the deity forms of the Lord. And we also discussed this limb of archanam, or deity worship, and also paricharya, which is serving the deity in a menial way. That is paricharya. The 31st limb we discussed. 32nd limb of Geetam, singing for the pleasure of the Lord. Then 33rd, which is Sankirtanam, which is chanting. Nama, Leela, Guna, Adinam, Uchair Bhashatu Kirtanam. So Kirtan means loud chanting of either the names, pastimes, and qualities of the Lord. So that is called as Sankirtanam. So I think this is where we ended our. Then we saw proofs for Nama Kirtan, Leela Kirtan, Guna Kirtan, like that. And then this is where we paused last week, and we are going to continue this discussion further. But before we start today's discussion, if there are any quick discussion points, comments, questions, anything anyone would like to share as add based on what we discussed last week, you can please go ahead. Mohit Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu ji, Dandavat Pranam.
Yes, sir.
Hare Krishna Prabhu ji, in last class, what I understand from your and Mother Gail Mataji chat. So I make two conclusion of your chat of 64 limbs. Suppose Prabhu ji, there is non-devotee who is going to Mathura Vrindavan for Giriraj Parikrama or for Banke Bihari Darshan, but he wants some material benefit. So is this dham also give him some agyat sukriti also with fulfilling his material desire? Because in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, somebody who wants from me material desires, I fulfill that and also put faith in them to worship him. So will he get some agyat sukriti also with him?
No.
For
agyata sukriti, there has to be no material desires.
Because Prabhuji, I remember because during my first Vrindavan tour with my father, I did Giriraj Parikrama, and in my heart there is only material desire to pass in my exam, college exam. But in second time with my father, when I did Giriraj Parikrama, I took one small book from ISKCON, and by this I joined ISKCON. So, and I also got a pass in my exam. So I thought that matlab ki, so for non devotees also these limbs are useful in getting agyat sukriti. They help
For
these for non
no,
devotees who no Prabhuji.
no.
Okay,
By
so they will.
if you approach, I mean, the first thing that the very fact that someone is doing Giriraj Parikrama with the desire, with the faith that he will get his material desires fulfilled, he cannot be a non-devotee. So he has to
Okay,
be a devotee only, but he is a mixed devotee. He has some
okay,
material desires. So mixed devotional mode cannot be, it will not be changed by Giriraj Parikrama. Giriraj will fulfill those desires uh,
okay,
depending on the intensity of prayer. But uh, but if by the association of some devotee, if one gets some favorable experiences in Krishna consciousness, then
okay,
one may get some Agyata Sukriti. But if one approaches, one of the main conditions for accumulation of Agyata Sukriti is there must not be any uh, material desire for fulfilling which we should approach the Supreme Lord.
okay, Prabhuji. And second question, Prabhuji, and for devotees who did this 64 limbs with full faith, so Krishna will come close to that devotee to वो जन्म कर्म च में दिव्यम वो next verse to that bhava ashrita and close to that verse मतलब bhava bhakti close to bhava and prema bhakti मतलब how these limbs work on him.
Depending on the faith, depending on the faith.
Okay. Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you. And second question, Prabhuji, you said in last class that one for this 64 limbs, there should be prema in heart. Matlab, if you offer some food to Krishna, prasad to Krishna, there should be prema. Krishna does not accept anything without prema. So
I said
sometime
without
we
bhakti, I did prema.
Okay, so sometimes Prabhuji we do mechanical offering to Krishna. We made prasad, but for we make prasad according to our taste, not for Krishna taste, but we offer it to Krishna. So does Krishna accept this, Prabhuji?
But I mean, to the extent that you offer, but you could have as well offer without offering to Krishna, you could have as well eaten it yourself, right? Why did you offer it to Krishna?
No, Prabhuji, in initial stages, we do only mechanical devotional service. We offer 3 times prasadam to Krishna, offering bhoga to Krishna. But we make prasad no, only from our desire, our taste. Like we like something, we want to cook what we like, so we offer it to Krishna. So
Yeah, it may
so
not be the best form of offering, but there must be
okay,
some devotion because of which you are offering it to Krishna. Otherwise, without even offering, you could have eaten it yourself. So
okay,
there must be
Prabhuji, and
some.
the Hanji, yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. Okay,
Yeah,
Prabhuji. Okay, the best thing is for highest मतलब prema devotional service. We offer food for what Krishna likes. मतलब we cook food what Krishna likes. मतलब this is the best form
yeah,
of devotional service.
yes.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Right. Anything else anyone would like to share as add based on what we discussed last week? Okay. If there is none, then we will continue our discussion. So the next limb of devotional service is japa. So japa means, what is japa? Mantrasya su lagu ucharo japa iti abhidiyate. So japa is defined as mantrasya su lagu uchara. A very soft chanting of mantra is called as japa. So generally what we chant, the early morning japa, many of us chant quite loud. That is not strictly japa, it is actually kirtan. There is nothing wrong. Actually, it is recommended that we chant japa. It is recommended that we chant the holy names loud only. Uh, Actually, in the strictest sense, japa is what we, the way we chant our Gayatri mantra without uttering the syllables through our audibly chanting the mantra. That is actually japa. Actually, what we chant in the morning, uh, the loud chanting, that comes more in the category of kirtan rather than japa actually. But there is nothing wrong. So, mantrasya su lagu uchcharo japa iti abhidiyate. Japa is defined as a very soft chanting of the mantra. So, in order to give a proof for japa as a limb of devotional service, Srila Rupa Goswami quotes a verse from the Padma Puran. कृष्णाय नम इति एष मंत्रः सर्वार्थ साधकः भक्तानां जपतां भूप स्वर्ग मोक्ष फलप्रदः. So he says japatam esha mantra. When one chants the mantra very softly, the mantra, which mantra? Krishnaya namaha iti. Krishnaya namaha. When we chant that mantra softly, sarva artha sadakaha, it produces all the benefits. O king, bhaktanam swarga moksha falapradaha, it bestows swarga and liberation to the devotees who perform japa of this mantra. Of course, we do understand that these phalas are primarily meant for attracting uh, mixed people who have mixed motives, those who have anya abhilasha. And so therefore, we don't, as devotees, we do not chant japa for these purposes. We know that for sure, right? So we may not get any of these things. We may get, we may not get. But this is not guaranteed for devotees. What is guaranteed for devotees is a progress towards Krishna's lotus feet. That is guaranteed. Okay. So then, yeah, just give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second. So then the next is called as Vigyapti. Vigyapti means entreaty. Entreaty means trying to prayers, right? So he quotes a verse from the Skanda Puran. Harim uddishya yatkinchit kritam vigyapanam gira moksha dwarargalan mokshas tenaiva vihitastava. So he says, Harim uddishya yat kinchit kritam vigyapanam gira. By making entreaties to the Lord with words, humble request, humbly requesting the Supreme Lord, moksha dwara argalan. Argalan means bolt, the bolt which locks the door. Moksha dwara argalan, the bolt on the door of moksha is moksha. It is released. So by offering humble prayers and entreaties to the Supreme Personality of Godhead with words, the bolt on the door of liberation is released. Like that. So this is a proof that is given from Skanda Puran. Of course, we know that not just the door for moksha, but it opens the door to establishing a relationship with Krishna. For that reason, we offer prayers. And then Srila Rupa Goswami says there are 3 types of prayers. Samprarthanatmika dainya bodhika lalasamayi ityadir vivida dharaihi Krishne vigyaptir irita. So he says, dhirai irita. The wise have explained that Krishne vivida vigyapti, that there are various types of entreaties to Krishna, such as Samprarthanatmika, Dainya Bodhika, and Lalasamayi. Three are prominent. So Samprarthanatmika means offering prayers, expressing our um, cherished desires, expressing our cherished desires to Krishna and seeking fulfillment of our cherished desires. That is called as Samprarthanatmika. And Dainya Bodhika means expressing our fallen state to Krishna. That is called as Dainya Bodhika. And Lalasamayi means expressing our most cherished desires to Krishna for fulfillment. The difference between Samprarthanatmika and Lalasamayi is that Samprarthanatmika prayers are offered by sadhakas and Lalasamayi prayers are offered by the perfected devotees. So they may look somewhat similar, but they are not the same. So Samprarthanatmika are offered by sadhakas, practitioners who have not achieved perfection, and Lalsamai prayers by those who have already achieved perfection, like that. So here Srila Jiva Goswami writes, Samprarthana prayers are statements coming from persons who have not attained the stage of bhava, whereas Lalasa statements come from persons who have attained bhava. That is the difference. Okay, like that. Any quick discussion points, comments, questions? Okay, let us see some examples. The first example of a Samprarthanatmika prayer is from Padma Puran. From Padma Purana, this is quoted. Yuvatinam yata yuni yunam cha yuvatau yata manobhiramate tadvan mano abhiramatam tvayi. So here the devotee is requesting Krishna. He says, Yata yuvatinam manaha, just as the minds of young women, yuni abhiramate, are very naturally attracted to young men. Yunam cha yuvatau yata, and just as the minds of young men are naturally attracted to young women, tadvat, in the same way, manaha abhiramatam tvayi, may my mind be attracted to you. Like that. So just like when a young man, he falls in love with a woman, he cannot think of anyone else but that woman. And similar for the young woman who has fallen in love with a man. So in this material world, that particular attraction is the most powerful attraction. So the devotee, having observed and probably himself gone through this attraction, he is offering this prayer to Krishna. May my mind helplessly think about you, just like a young man who has fallen in love, he helplessly thinks about his beloved. And similarly, the young woman who has fallen in love helplessly thinks about her beloved. May my mind think about you. So this is an example of a Samprarthanatmika prayer. Right? Like that. Many times we offer, other prayers where we express, may I develop attraction, may I chant properly. Personal prayers also. May I chant attentively. These are all Samprarthanatmika prayers. Okay. And the second is Dainya Bodhika prayers. Dainya Bodhika prayers means prayers expressing one's fallen situation and seeking help. So here in Padma, he quotes a verse from the Padma Puran where the devotee says, Mattulyo nasti papatma naparadi cha kaschana pariharepi lajjame kimbruve purushottama. So he says, Mattulyo nasti papatma. So he says that, my dear Lord, there is no one as sinful as myself. And then he says, Naparadi cha kaschana. There is no one who is more offensive than me. Pariharyapi lajjami. How many times can I ask you to, uh, forgive my offenses? How many times I can ask you to remove my sins? I am feeling very ashamed. Kim bruve purushottama. What can I say, O Purushottama? I am such a fallen person that I have so many times committed offenses, and I have removed, and I have requested you to remove those sins, that I am now disgusted and ashamed to ask you again and again to do the same. So in this way, the devotee here is presenting his fallen state to uh, Krishna. So this is an example of Dainya Bodhika prayer. We see so many prayers by the acharyas which fall within this category. Amar Jivan Sadapa Perata Naiko Punyera Lesha. And so on. So many, there are many stanzas in Gopinath Mamma Nivedana, where, one expresses these feelings of fallen, the mood of being very fallen and struggling with many, many anarthas like that. So this is an example of Dainya Bodhika prayer. Then the third example is of Lalasamayi. Lalasamayi means expression of a great longing by a person who has achieved perfection, who is at the stage of bhava or prema. He quotes a verse from Narada Pancharatra. Kada gambhiraya vacha shriya yukto jagatpate chamaravygrahastam mam evam kurviti vakshyasi. So he says, O Jagatpate, O Master of the Universe, Kada, when will that time be? Shriya Yukto, when accompanied by Lakshmi, Mam Vakshyasi Gambhiraya Vacha. When you will say with a very deep voice to me, Evam Kuru iti. Come here and do this. Like that. Chamara Vyagrahastamam. When I am eagerly standing to serve you, with a chamara in my hands, when will the day be mine when you will call me and tell me, okay, do this service, like that? When will that day be mine? So there are so many verses in acharyas, Radha Krishna Prana Mora Yokishore. There are many Lalsamai sentiments expressed in that. But they are very exalted. Like Shama Gori Ange Dibo Chandane Raganda Chamara Dolabo Kabe Teri Mukha Chandra Radha Krishna Prana Mora Yogala Kishore. So there, the whole, bhajan, there is an expression of this lalasa. When will that day be mine when I will get this opportunity to anoint this chandan to the dark complexioned Krishna and the fair complexioned Radharani, and offer the services of a chamara to them for their service. This is Lalsamai prayer, because an ordinary sadhaka who is struggling with anarthas cannot offer these kind of prayers. So any offering of prayer should be consistent with their level of advancement. We can, when we sing Lalsamai prayers, like when we sing Lalsamai prayers, like every day morning we sing Tulsi Arti, which is also a Lalsamai prayer, where we say that what is that? Can someone remind me? In morning, what is that stanza which is Lalsamai in Tulsi Arti? Seva adhikara diye koro nija dasi, and all those. Kripa kori koro tare Vrindavanavasi, koro nija dasi. These are all like Lalsamai expressions. When we sing these kind of expressions, when we offer these kind of prayers, we actually gratefully remember those devotees who are qualified to offer these prayers. We worship those devotees who are qualified to offer these prayers mentally, rather than directly asking for this, because we cannot immediately ask for this. We first have to become qualified for that. Or one prayer that we can offer is that while we are offering so Yei Mora Abhilash Vilas Kunje Dio Vas, and so on, like that. So one with our Sakir Anugata Koro, like that, offer these kind of prayers. So these prayers are Lalsamai. When we offer these prayers, what we can do, one prayer that we can offer is that Krishna or Tulsi Maharani, please make me qualified to offer this prayer to you one day. While we cannot directly offer this prayer, but while singing this Tulsi Arti, we can think, Krishna, one day please make me qualified to offer this prayer. Like that. Or we can mentally offer our worship to those personalities who are qualified to offer this prayer. Like that. Okay. So this is an example of Lalsamai prayer. One more example of Lalsamai prayer which is offered, which is stated. The source is not mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami. He says, Kadaham yamatire namani tava kirtayan udbashpaha pundarikaksha rachayishyami tandavam. So he says, O Pundarikaksha, O lotus-eyed Lord, Kada aham rachayishyami tandavam. When will the day be mine when I will dance Yamuna Tire, on the bank of Yamuna, Udbashpaha, with tears in my eyes, Namani Tava Kirtayan, while singing your names. When will the day be mine when while dancing on the banks of Yamuna, while chanting your names, tears will flow from my eyes. Nayanam Galadashru Daraya, Vadanam Gadgadaruddaya Gira, Pulakair Nichitam Vapu Kada. Tavanama Grahane Bhavishyati. So that is actually Lalasamai, where he's expressing this Lalasa. Of course, this can also be, this can also be a Samprarthanatmika prayer. Because someone may say, oh, you see here, the very fact that that the author is telling that when will that day be mine when while dancing and singing your names, tears will flow from my eyes. So someone may say, oh, which means when he is dancing and singing, tears are not already flowing from his eyes. That is why he is offering this prayer. Um, uh, so therefore, how can this be Lalsamayi? This will be Samprarthanatmika. Someone may say like that. So therefore, it is very difficult to exactly. Sometimes it becomes difficult to say whether it's a Lalsamayi prayer or a Samprarthanatmika prayer, because even very exalted devotees sometimes offer Lalsamayi prayers as if they sound very much like Samprarthanatmika. Like say, for example, if you see in the case of Ambarish Maharaj mm, in the Bhagavatam, it is mentioned in that series of verses which talk about how he used to engages engage all his senses in the service of Krishna. Savai mana Krishna padaravindayo chamsi vaikunta gunanuvarnane, and so on. And uh, towards the end of that last verse, it is mentioned yaduttama shloka janashraya ratihi. So why was he engaging all his senses in the service of Krishna? It is mentioned that Yad Uttama Shloka Jana Ashraya Ratihi, with a desire that because Ambarish Maharaj had seen how very exalted devotees had very high level of affection for Krishna. So he was engaging all his senses in the service of Krishna so that one day he could also develop that love. Reality, Ambarish Maharaj was engaging all his senses in the service of Krishna because of love. But the nature of love is that the more you have it, the more you feel that you don't have. The more you have it, the more you feel you don't. And the more you will be able to see it in others and not yourself. So therefore, Ambarish Maharaj was seeing that others are having this love, I am not having. So let me engage my senses in the service of Krishna so that I can develop that love that these people have within their heart, but I don't have it right now. So this was the mood of. So therefore, many times actual Lalsamai prayers many times sound like Samprarthanatmika prayers. Like for example, this prayer where the person is telling that when will the day be mine when tears will flow from my eyes. So this should ideally be a Samprarthanatmika prayer, right? But actually it is presented as Lalsamai. Because it's very, so you see here, Srila Jiva Goswami writes, superficially, this appears to be a Samprarthanatmika prayer of someone who has not manifested bhava. Because he says, oh, when will the day be mine when tears will flow from my eyes? One will apply logic and say, this means he has not manifested those ecstatic symptoms. Therefore, he is not at the stage of bhava. Therefore, this must be a Samprarthanatmika prayer. Actually, this is not true, right? Samprarthana belongs to someone without the appearance of bhava, whereas lalasa or prayer's intense longing belong to a person who has manifested bhava. However, when a prayer is filled with a similar longing, expressing such bhava, even though not attained, it is also called as lalasa. Sometimes it may not be lalasa mayi, but it may be called as lalasa. Sometimes some prarthana may also be called as lalasa because a similar bhava is being expressed by a sadhaka like that. Thus, this example is classed as lalsamayi. Prayers and longing such as these are given here to illustrate the topic, but actually they should be understood to be examples of raganuga bhakti. So, Vaidhi sadhaka, he cannot offer these kind of prayers. Kadaham yamuna tire namani tava kirtayan udbashpa pundarikaksha rachayishyami tandavam. So these kind of prayers, Vaidhi sadhaka cannot offer because that level of spontaneity and greed is generally not seen in Or the sadhakas who are struggling with grass and arthas. So we should generally offer prayers according to their level of mm, according to their level of advancement. But of course, when we are offering exalt prayers by our acharyas, which may fall within the category of Lalsamai, then like every day we chant Tulsi Arti, we pray to Tulsi Maharani that, my dear Tulsi Maharani, let one day I am qualified to actually ask for whatever benediction which is mentioned in this Tulsi Arti. Please make me qualified one day to offer this prayer to you. In that mode, we can sing these prayers, Lalsamai prayers. Any quick discussion points, comments, questions? Anything anyone would like to share, ask, add? Okay. Okay, there is something in the chat box. Okay. There is a question. I have heard that we should chant on Tulsi beads only after Diksha. Is it true? Okay, I mean, it's not directly connected to the subject matter that is now, but no, we can chant on Tulsi beads even before Diksha. I don't think such a, yeah, we can chant on Tulsi beads before Diksha, no problem. Okay, anything else? Okay, let's continue. The next is called as Stavapata. Stavapata means reciting compositions of praise. Okay, so Srila Rupa Goswami says, Prokta Manishibir Gita Tava Rajadayah Tavaha. What's Tava? He says, Manishibihi Prokta. The wise people say that Gita Stavarajadayah Tavaha. Gita and the Stavaraj contained in the Gautamiya Tantra, they are examples of Stava. I mean, I don't know what is a Stavaraj. I have never read it or heard about it, but it is apparently a very popular example of Stava along with Gita. Okay. So here he says the Gita is called Stava because its contents glorify the Supreme Lord. Therefore, it is called as Stava, like that. Okay. So now he gives an example from the Skanda Puran for from the Skanda Puran for this particular limb of Stava. So he says, Shri Krishna Stava Ratno Ghair Yesham Jihva tu Alankrita Namasya Muni Siddhanam Vandaniya Divaukasam. So he says, Muni Siddhanam, the perfected sages, Diva Okasam, and the Devatas, Namasya Vandaniya, they respect and offer obeisances. Yesham Jihva tu Alankrita, whose tongue is ornamented with Shri Krishna Stavaratna Oghaihi, whose tongue is ornamented with glorification of Krishna, which is compared to an ocean of jewels, like that. So that is what this verse is talking about. Sri Krishna Stava Ratnogair Esham Jikvat Valankrita Namasya Muni Siddhanam Vandaniya Divaukasam. Like that. And then another verse is quoted from the Narasimha Puran here. He says, Stotraihi stavaischa devagre yastauti madhusudanam sarva papa vinirmukto vishnu lokam avapnuyat. So he says, Yaha stauti madhusudanam. He who praises Madhusudan, stotraihi stavaihi. stotras and stavas, Deva Agre, in front of his deity form, Sarva Papa Vinirmukto, he is freed from all kinds of sins. Vishnu Lokam Avapnuyat, and he attains the planet of Vishnu. Like that. So if you, so Stavapata means to recite um, compositions in praise of in praise of the Lord. That is called as Stavapata. So one who does that, so one can compose one's own compositions of praise of the Supreme Lord and offer it to the Supreme Lord. It is considered to be a very important limb of devotional service. Any quick discussion points? Okay, if there is none, we will continue. The 37th limb is a limb which everyone likes. There is no one who does not like this limb of devotional service, which is Naivedya Aswada, tasting the remnants of the deity. A verse is quoted from the Padma Puran. Naivedyamannam tulasi vimishram visheshata pada jalena siktam yoshnati nityam puramurarehe prapnoti yajnayuta koti punyam. So it is mentioned, Yaha Ashnati Nityam, he who always eats. Always means not on a regular basis, not every moment. Yaha Ashnati Nityam, Purato Murarehe, outside the inner sanctum of the Supreme Lord, Naivamannam, the remnants of the Lord's food, Visheshata Pada Jalena Siktam, which is sprinkled with water from the Lord's feet, Tulasi Vimishram, which is also mixed with the Tulsi offered to the Lord, Prapnoti Ayuta Koti Yajna Punyam. He achieves the results 100 billion sacrifices. Of course, if you perform a particular sacrifice, you generally get some material punya. If you perform 100 billion sacrifices, you will 100 billion times material punya only, for which you will have to take birth. We have to take billions of birth to actually, wipe out that punya. But by eating, when a person with pure devotional faith honors the Naivedya offered to Supreme Lord, he does not get, he does not achieve the result of 100 billion sacrifices, because he achieves actually Krishna Prem gradually over a period of time. First, the Anartha Nivritti happens gradually, and then gradually one attains so Krishna Prema, like that. Okay. Okay, that is about Naivedya Swadaha. And of course, we do understand that there are qualities of Naivedya. Definitely, a Naivedya, a proper Naivedya is that which is grown for Krishna, plugged for Krishna, cooked for Krishna, offered for the pleasure of Krishna, and honored gratefully with devotion. That actually is the most potent. That actually is the most potent form of Naivedya. And of course, the consciousness of the person who cooks that food definitely permeates in food. Therefore, we have to be careful as to what we eat. Very advanced devotees are very strict, you can say, conditions for honoring even prasadam, because prasadam is one very, you can say, important means through which consciousness gets transferred. So, so therefore, this is very, very important. Mm, Uh, you know, there are many devotees who do not chant, who do not eat in in anyone's house, where the person who is cooking does not chant 16 rounds. Some, and it is very valid actually. So, and ideally, uh, actually, in one sense, the cook and the pujari, these two roles are the most critical roles uh, in a temple actually, especially you know if a big congregation is living, um, uh, is dependent on that temple. So in such cases, actually the role of the cook cooks for the community if the community takes prasadam centrally, uh, and the pujari, these two services are the most critical services, because their consciousness permeates into what is cooked and what is offered to the Supreme Lord, and that actually permeates into the whole congregation. So the devotional lives of so many people eventually depends on who cooks and who offers. So therefore, ideally, the most advanced devotees, spiritually advanced devotees, they should actually be cooking for the Lord and doing deity services. But unfortunately, I have shared a few times, but unfortunately, in today's day and age, the most qualified people, they are engaged in preaching, and I mean preaching. By preaching, I mean verbal preaching. Of course, preaching is has a much broader, you can say, uh, meaning. Like often, His Holiness Radharani Maharaj used to quote Saint Francis of Assisi. He used to say, Saint Francis of Assisi says, "We always preach, we always preach, and whenever there is a need, we may speak." We always preach, but whenever there is a need, we may speak. So, but anyways, when I say preaching, what I mean is, the more speaking type preaching, giving classes, and teaching the scriptures like that, those which are considered to be very, you can say, preferred and very honored services. But in reality, actually, even the consciousness of that preacher is maintained by one who cooks that prasadam for him, and the devotee who renders personal service to the deities. So, therefore, someone, if the consciousness of the person who personally renders service to the deity is not of a very high quality, then uh, the the deity bestows compromised mercy only in those who. So the potency of the deity is to the extent, is proportional to the purity and affection with which the deity is served by the servants of the deity. So when very qualified personalities who are very pure and who have great affection for the deity forms, when they serve the Lord, when the quality of deity service is very high class, then the deity manifests very powerful potency to bestow benedictions, devotional benedictions. The same is true with, and of course, uh, The same is true with the bhoga which is offered to the Supreme Lord also. But unfortunately, that is, we in many temples, rather I would say in most of the temples, this cooking and deity services are relegated to be the least important services, and paid employees are used for uh, engaging in these kind of services. I don't mean to say paid employees are insincere. I didn't mean to say that. I don't say that paid employees are insincere, not in that sense. But whenever these services are rendered for remuneration, there is always a chance or possibility that it can really sort of compromise our mood of devotion to that particular service. So therefore we have to be very careful. So this navedyam is a very important thing, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrit, Vishayira anna kaila malina hai man, malina mana hai Krishna na hai smaran. So Vishayira anna kaila malina hai. So when we eat food that is offered offered or by non-devotee, then it contaminates our heart, and when our heart gets contaminated, we will not be able to remember Krishna. And ultimately, the goal of life is Savya Satatam Vishnur Vismartavyo na Jatuchit. The goal of life is to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. And that remembrance of Krishna compromised when we eat food which is either not offered or cooked and offered by devotees with not very high standard of consciousness. So therefore, in one sense, I mean, whatever may be our current status of standard, whatever may be our current standard, we can try to take one baby step ahead. So if we are used to eating a lot of non-prasadam, we can at least try to reduce the frequency with which we eat that non-prasadam. If we very rarely eat non-prasadam, we can try to stop that very rare occurrence also if possible. If we have always been taking prasadam, then maybe, we can consider, like for example, Govindas and other such places. In most of the Govindas, they're very rarely, there may be exceptions. In most of the Govindas, the food is offered, no, but most of the cooks probably, they may not be good practicing devotees. They may not be, in many cases, they may not be devotees also. So if you're already used to eating prasadam, maybe we may avoid like that, whatever is our current status of stand of practice, we may try to improve it little bit more. So, but ultimately we have to understand that cooking is a very important medium through which consciousness gets transformed. So therefore, if you see in many mutts and even many of the Sri Vaishnavite mutts, the bhoga is made by very exalted actually. The bhoga which is offered to the Supreme Lord. In the Madhva mutts, actually sannyasis personally cook and serve prasadam also to others. So it is very important. This is a very important um, limb of devotional service, and we do it 3 times a day. So therefore, this is something which we need to really pay a lot of attention to. Any discussion points before we move ahead to the next limb of devotional service? Okay. If there is none, then we will move ahead to the next limb of devotional service, which is Padya Aswadaha, means tasting the water remnants of the deity. Okay, tasting the foot water remnants of the deity. Dhanam nahaviryesham swadhyayo na surarchanam tepi padodakam pitva prayanti paramam gatim. Those who drink the foot water of the Lord achieve the supreme goal, even though they have not performed any charity, sacrifices, Vedic study, or deity worship. So they may not have performed any of these things. But if they drink the foot water of the Lord, they can achieve the supreme goal, provided that level of faith should be there. As we discussed last time, the extent of the potency of any of these limbs is proportional to the faith we have in performing these limbs of devotional service, like that. So this is the 38th limb, which is tasting the foot water remnants of the deity. Any discussion points? Okay, let's continue the discussion. Next. Yeah, here supreme goal means prema, correct. True. The 39th limb is called as Dhupa Saurabhyam. Dhupa means the incense which is offered to the Lord. Saurabhyam means to smell, right? So Dhupa Saurabhyam means smelling incense which is offered to the Lord. Aghranam yadharer datta dhupo chishtasya sarvatah tadbhava dashanam nasyam karma vishapaham. So it is mentioned here, nasyam, the action of the nose, which is smelling, agrahanam, yad harer datta dhupa chishtasya sarvatah, smelling the incense which is offered to the Lord, karma visha apaham, it fully destroys the poison of karma, tad bhava vyala dashtanam, it fully destroys the poison of karma inflicted on those bitten by the snake of material existence, which means it leads to liberation, like that. So smelling the incense is a very powerful, which we do, but many times, as we may do it very mechanically. But when we really understand that just by smelling this incense which is offered to the Supreme Lord, I am going to take one step closer to establishing a relationship with the same Lord. When the right mood is there, then the limb becomes all the more potent. So it is our attitude and consciousness which acts as the fuel to all these limbs of devotional service. So Dhupa Saurabhyam, that is the 39th limb. Any discussion points? Okay. Next, another thing which we can, the limb is actually Saurabhyam, to smell the remnants of the Lord. So in that comes the Dhupa, which is the incense which is offered to the Lord. We can also smell the garlands and the flowers which are offered to the Lord, which is called as Malya Saurabhyam. And Srila Rupa Goswami quotes this verse from the Tantra Shastra. Aghranam gandha pushpader architasya tapodhana vishuddhisyadanantasya Granasyeha vidiyate. It is said that the nose smelling the flowers and the gandha which is offered to the infinite Lord is the cause of complete purification in this world. So, just by smelling the garlands and the flowers which are offered to the Lord, it causes complete purification. Um, mm, Complete purification in this world, like that. Okay. Any quick discussion points, comments? If there is none, we will continue. The 40th limb is Shri Murtehe Sparshanam, touching the deity for those who are qualified to touch the deity. Especially if it's a temple deity, you have to be second initiated to touch and serve the deities. So touching the deity means for those who are qualified to touch and serve the deity for them. So here it is mentioned. This is a verse from the Vishnu Dharmottara. Sprishtva Vishnoradishtanam Pavitra Shraddhayanvitah Papabandair Vinirmuktah Sarvan Kaman Avapnuyat. So it says, Pavitraha Shraddhayanvitah, the pure, faithful person, Sprishtva Vishnor Adishnam. So even though touching the deity is a limb of devotional service, like chanting the holy name of the Lord, but some of the limbs do not have a lot of prerequisites. Like for example, chanting the holy name, one can chant the holy name anywhere, in any stage of in any state of impurity, external impurity, one can chant the holy name. In any state of internal impurity, also one can chant the name. But there are certain limbs like archanam, and touching the deity of the Lord. For that, some particular level of internal and external purity is needed. Therefore, it is said. Therefore, the word pavitraha and shraddhayanvitaha is mentioned. Right, the pure, faithful person, Prishtva Vishradishtanam, who touches the deity of Vishnu, Papa Bandair Vinirmuktaha, he becomes freed from the bondage of sin. Sarvan Kaman Avapniyat, and he attains all desires. Like that. So that is the 40th limb, which is touching the deity forms a lot. Any discussion points before we move ahead? Okay. Next. The next limb is Shri Murtehe Darshanam, seeing the deity. Vrindavane tu Govindam ye pashyanti vasundhare nate yamapuram yanti punyakritam gatim. So, okay, there is a question. Does this include touching Srila Prabhupada's deity also? Actually, all these limbs of devotional service, which are mentioned here, which apply to the Supreme Lord, equally applicable to the Supreme Lord's devotees also. So, touching the deity of the Lord is a limb of devotional service. Similarly, touching the deity of a devotee is also a limb of devotional service. So next 40th limb is, okay, someone may say, oh, actually I am not second initiated, I cannot see the deity. So it's no problem. One can take darshan of the deity. For that, there is no second initiation or even first initiation that is needed. So taking darshan of a deity is also a very important limb of consciousness. Yes, Mother Gail.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, I also wondered about touching Tulsi Maharani Some people
Mm-hmm.
when they're circumambulating, they will
Mm-hmm.
touch her soil, and
Mm-hmm.
also touching Srila Prabhupada's murti,
Mm-hmm.
touching his feet. People often do. Are both of those okay
Uh, you mean for, I mean, at least
for
the main thing
uninitiated?
is, yeah, yeah, definitely. Uninitiated, I think they can touch the deity of Srila Prabhupada. I think in all the temples, many times I have observed that even to dress Srila Prabhupada's deities, initiation is not a prerequisite.
Oh,
The
really?
many times, yeah, I have seen uninitiated they can dress Prabhupada, but not the installed deities in the temple. So that the deities of Radha and Krishna and Nitai, for that second initiation is needed. But even devotees who
I'm
are
sorry. You
not
said for what second initiation is needed for what?
for the installed Radha Krishna Gaurnitai deities in the temple
Yeah,
for that.
yeah.
But for Srila Prabhupada's deities, I have seen the standards are. I think the external standards are not that much. I have seen non-initiated devotees also dressing Srila Prabhupada. Mm. In at GV, on many days, Gurukul children were not initiated. They dress Srila Prabhupada's deities. So,
Mm,
and in other temples also,
mm,
I have similarly observed. Even though the standards are much more stricter for the Radha Krishna and the other deities of the Supreme Lord, who are installed. But for Srila Prabhupada, those external qualifications are much relaxed. But certainly in terms of purity, at least external purity, like taking bath. So either Srila Prabhupada's deities or Tulsi Maharani to touch without taking bath is not correct. It is inappropriate actually. So at least bathing is very important.
mm-hmm. Um, and last thing about touching them is, you know, is it to touch Srila Prabhupada or, okay, let me say Srila Prabhupada first. Is it something that we should do, or does it just depend upon one's consciousness? You know,
Well,
like,
here the word sparshanam, touching, is very explicitly mentioned. Uh, but of course, as you said, the mood is also important. Someone may touch the deities in a mood of entitlement, and someone may choose not to touch the deities in a mood of utter humility.
mhm.
So, therefore, is the person who is touching because he is executing one additional limb of devotional service, is he going to progress faster than that person who is choosing not to touch the deities? Uh, is that person going to progress any slower? Not necessarily. Ultimately, it boils down to the mood. So if person who is choosing not to touch out of utter humility, uh, he may progress faster than that person who touches, and touching he may even push other devotees around, and with a feeling of entitlement, he may do it. That is inappropriate. But
Mhm.
certainly touching is mentioned to be an important limb of devotional service.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just actually a little surprised by that since it seems like such an external thing. You know. Because,
Yeah,
I mean, advancement is all about consciousness, right? And so I'm
yeah.
just a
So
little
if you,
surprised.
yeah, it's consciousness. So that is why you consider, uh, uh, the same is true with the garlands offered to the Supreme Lord, right? So because you consider that, you know, uh, this garland has personally sat on the chest of Krishna and Radharani for one full day, and I am getting to touch that same garland, you know, that should be the mood with which we should receive. And the
Mm-hmm.
same applies to touching the feet of the Lord also. We may definitely feel embarrassed. Uh, we may feel embarrassed and that really qualified to do this. Uh, but having said that, hmm, you know, we can think similarly. Am I even qualified to chant the holy names of the Supreme Lord? Because the holy name is non-different from Krishna. Abhinnatva nama namino. Am I even qualified to chant his names? He is the supreme personality of Godhead. With the same eyes, I have watched all types of inappropriate material things. Uh, am I even qualified to take darshan of the deities of the Lord? You can keep on extending it to practically all the 64 limbs of devotional service. So, but we should engage in all these 60 limbs of devotional service in a mood of humility, in a mood of gratitude, in a mood of embarrassment, considering ourselves fallen. But all that mood we should engage in them rather than run away from them, actually.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Prabhu, thank you.
Very okay. Uh, okay, if there are no further discussion points, we will move on to the next limb, which is seeing the deity. So if someone feels, oh, I cannot touch the deity because I don't have second initiation. So Prabhupada is very merciful. Prabhupada allows you to touch him, even though we may not be second initiated. But we can see the deity forms irrespective of any kind of initiation. So this is a verse which is quoted from the Varaha Puran by Srila Rupa Goswami. Vrindavane tu govindam ye pashyanti vasundhare nate yamapuram yanti punyakritam gatim. O Vasundhare, O earth, ye pashyanti, those who see Vrindavane tu govindam, those who see Govinda in Vrindavan, na te yamapuram yanti, they should never go to the city of Yama. Yanti punyakritam gatim. So punyakritam gatim literally means they go to the abode which is achieved by those who are very pious, those who have performed many pious activities. But here it is translated as yanti punya kritam gatim means they achieve pure bhakti, which is the goal of all punya. Gati means goal. Gati means goal. The goal of all pious activities is bhakti, ultimately. So therefore, yanti punya kritam gatim means they achieve pure bhakti, which is the goal of all punya, like that. This is the 41st limb, which is taking darshan of the deity of the Lord. Any quick discussion points, comments here? Yes, Radha Pramod Prabhu, and then there is a question in the chat box. Oh, sorry. Okay, Monica Mataji.
Does it include watching photos and watching live darshan or day live darshan? Or
Yeah. It includes all of that, Mataji.
so both of them give same result as watching live.
Yes, provided we have the right mode.
Okay, thanks.
Right. Okay, there is a question in the chat box. For cooking bhoga or worship, we need second initiated devotees, which is like a direct service. But for making garlands, we don't have such rules, even though garlands are directly put on the body of the Lord. Is there any clarification on this? Okay, this is a very good question. For cooking bhoga or to directly worship, we need second initiation, but for garlands, because garlands are not processed, food is processed, So for example, anything unprocessed, especially on fire, okay, anything which is unprocessed on fire, the qualifications for offering it is very less. For example, someone has someone has a garden in which there are many mango trees. They have plucked some mangoes for the Lord and brought. Should he be second initiated? No, it is not needed. But if he wants to process that mango, if he removes that pulp and if he wants to make mango jam out of it, then for making that mango jam, one has to be second initiated if you are offering it to the temple deities. Because any Agni Karya, any processing, especially processing in fire, it requires qualification. Garlands, in one sense, are stitching dress. It does not include, in most of the temples, the dresses are not stitched by necessarily second initiated or even first initiated devotees, right? So the pujari takes that dress, does the essential purification process and offers it to the Lord. But bhoga is not like that. So when you cook in fire, that requires qualification. Any unprocessed food, okay, or unprocessed flowers, in this case, garland, for that it is, there is not much of a qualification needed. But even if garland is personally made, but that does not mean if one has the fortune of many second initiated devotees interested to make garlands, plucking flowers, plucking fruits, growing fruits. Not that second initiated devotees are more qualified, but second initiation should ideally be offered to those devotees who are more qualified. So when I say second initiated, what I mean is more qualified devotees. I don't necessarily mean that all second initiated devotees are more qualified. But ideally, second initiation should be offered to those who are more qualified. But anyways, when I say if more advanced devotees are willing to do even these services of making garlands which do not involve processing on fire, that kind of thing, then anyone can do it. And the pujari, it is his responsibility to purify those, offer it to the Supreme Lord. Is it all right? Any further clarification needed? So any kind of Agni Karya needs qualification actually, because food is processed mostly on fire, so it needs a higher qualification like that. Okay. Yes, Mother Gail. Oh, sorry. Who is this? Radha Bhavini Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Danda Pranam.
Dandat Mataji.
Yeah, Prabhuji, you were speaking about while cooking for deities about second initiation, but generally for Dwadashi and all, we are cooking for means participating as a part, our part we are doing at home and taking chapan bhog. So is that That's
Yeah,
to ask the question.
on special days like Janmashtami, the Lord is little bit more merciful. So he accepts bhoga from non, anyone can offer bhoga like that. On very select days like Janmashtami, Gaurma, like that. But on a regular basis, qualified people should cook. Qualified devotees should cook.
Yeah, like
Dwadashi, I
Rajpuri.
don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Okay.
when you spoke about touching the deities,
Mhm.
the same standards what we follow in temple should we follow at home also. Like we try to, but just wanted to clarify with you.
I mean, well,
Especially when we change
definitely
the
the home deity worship standards are much low. But how much low? Uh, but but it need not remain low if we have, if we can offer more time the for the service of the deities, then we should invest more time and energy to put better effort to take care of the deity. Just because the home deity worship standards are low, we don't have to necessarily maintain low standards uh, to take care of the home deity.
And one last question was, you told about qualified second initiate devotees. So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Ideally, Nishtha should be the standard for second initiation. Ideally, of course, you know, then very few people will actually get second initiation.
Huh.
I mean, hardly any would get second initiated.
Yes.
Because Nishtha means absence of these laya, vikshepa, apratipatti, kashaya, and so on. So Nishtha means one is never disturbed by sleep in performing any devotional activities. One is never distracted in performing any devotional activities. Laya, vikshepa, apratipatti, and there is not even a temporary lack of taste in performing those devotional activities, any devotional activity. And kashaya, one is no longer troubled by any past bad habits. And then rasaswada. Rasaswada means whenever there is an opportunity for sense gratification, then our standard of devotional service goes down or vanishes completely. But at Nishtha, irrespective of whether there is an opportunity of gratification or not, one is very firm. One is not at all affected. So that is the stage of Nishtha actually. So which means, so ideally that should be the standard of second initiation. Uh, but in most cases it is not for many realistic purposes. It's okay, but ideally that should be the standard of second initiation.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you for clarifying so many doubts. Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Yes, there is a question in the chat box, and then we'll take one more question. Okay. Can you elaborate the distinction between worshipping photo of a deity and the direct deity worship? Deity worship needs qualification of second initiation, while the other does not. Yes, true. Those who do not have second initiation, they can worship the deities also. It all depends on the mood. Someone may not want to worship a deity uh, because the standards are very high, and they may be lazy to follow those standards. So they may think that, okay, I will worship a deity, a photograph, which is much more easy to, there are not much standards. Whenever I want, I can offer something. Whenever I want to eat, I can offer something like that. So that mood is not good. But someone may worship a photograph with a much more sincere mood and attitude than worshipping a deity form of the Lord, then definitely that photograph is very potent actually. So, so I'm not telling that it does not really matter whether you worship a deity or photograph. I'm not trivializing need for worshipping the deity form of the Lord in comparison to a photograph. But in cases where someone, for real reasons, may not be able to worship the deity form of the Lord, uh, but are worshipping the photographs with a very sincere mood, then definitely that is also very good. That is very potent also, definitely. Yes, Mother Gail.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I'm just curious about the fire. Maybe it's just mystical. Maybe it's something that can't be understood. But I was just wondering what it is about processing things with fire that, how is it that like, I guess, carries the consciousness of the performer or the devotee? What is it about fire?
I don't know the details, Mataji.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Okay, and then just one last thing about touching the deity. Also, as you said, stitching cloth that does not require processing, so anybody can do it.
Yeah.
But dressing the deity, is it because it's just such a personal thing? Because that also doesn't involve, fire.
Yeah, it does not involve fire, but definitely, like for example, yeah, you are right. It does not involve fire, but it's a very intimate service, right?
Yeah, right.
Like for example, you would allow a tailor to stitch your child's cloth, but you would not allow a tailor to
To
dress your
dress him.
child.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yeah, that's how
So
I was thinking. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a very intimate service actually. So
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
And actually, just one last thing was oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God, it was right here. And now it's not coming.
It's okay, Mataji. You can, if you remember.
I'm sorry. Yeah. About, the this practicality aspect of giving a person second initiation is, I don't know, somehow, I mean, I don't want to be offensive, but it just doesn't seem like, how should I say? There's something that just strikes me off about that, because, like, for example, if a temple is short-handed, right, with pujaris, right, we hear that, people get second initiation just because of that, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just wonder about I guess I should say the legitimacy of that.
Well, the I would rather rather than questioning the legitimacy of the act, I would rather give the benefit of doubt of for the intention behind the act. So so it's just like, sometimes, I give this example of I don't know how relevant it is in the West world, but I grew up in India. So in India, like you have your brothers, elder sisters, your elder cousins. So, they are 2, 3, 4 years elder to you. And uh, after they finish their, let's say they are in the 6th grade and you are in the 3rd grade. So once they complete their course, you know, they will give their books to you. They will give their books to you. And because you don't have to purchase a new set of books, and spend money on that. A lot of, when I grew up, practically my dress, my books. For in many times we never used to purchase. My elder cousins would pass on their clothes to me or their books to me, and same with my sister also. For we almost grew up, mostly wearing our elder cousins' clothes and books like that. Of course, not that we never used to purchase new clothes, but we used to. But many times we used to wear someone else's clothes only. So so if your elder cousin passes on sixth grade books to you, you are just going from third grade to fourth grade. So you would still have those books. Uh, even though there will be their utility for you would be only 2 years, but still you will keep them, and after 2 years you will utilize them. So similarly, even though ideally the second initiation has to be given when one reaches Nishta, I would say that a sincere person understanding that I have received it without achieving the qualification. So this gives a very strong positive pressure on me to become sincere so that I can attain that qualification quickly. Of course, attaining that qualification depends on mercy also, but it also depends on endeavor. Endeavor attracts that mercy. So let me sincerely endeavor, because a big burden. I won't say burden. Burden is a very
Negative,
and
yeah.
yeah, it's very negative. But there's a very big responsibility on me. My spiritual master, with all good trust on me, has this initiation. Now it is my responsibility uh, to actually become qualified for it. So it can have a very positive push also, because otherwise, then in one sense, we cannot have deities, we cannot take care of deities. Uh, so therefore this is needed. Sometimes Prabhupada, the standard of second initiation, people who are just in the movement for a few months, and they were given first initiation, second initiation, because the deities had to be taken care. So in this case, I would give the benefit of doubt to the intent of the acharya, even though that in the strictest sense that act is not a legitimate act, but but the intention is very, very legitimate. So sometimes it exonerates the inappropriateness of the act, because the intention is very, very appropriate. So in that sense.
Yes, actually, you reminded me of something that I've heard Srila Prabhupada said about why he, gave sannyas to so many too early. Something like, when there are, no trees in the forest or something like that. Even the castor oil tree looks big. Means
Yeah.
when there is necessity, you do the needful type of thing.
Correct.
This is
Correct. Yes.
okay, Guru. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Okay. So let's move on to the next limb of devotional service. And Krishna is so merciful. So Arati ka darshanam, even taking darshan of the Arati is a separate limb. So if you have taken darshan of the Lord, and then the Arati process starts, and you take darshan of the deity of the Arati of the Lord, it is a separate limb of devotional service. So the Skanda Puran says, Kotayo Brahma Hatyanam Agamya Gama Kotaya Dahatyaloka Matrena Vishno Saratikam Mukham. The face of Vishnu, lit by the light from the Artik lamp, burns up 10 millions of sins of killing Brahmanas and 10 millions committed in the past and to be committed in the future. Okay, like that. So taking darshan during the Aarti of the Lord is very potent. Then there is Utsava, observing the festivals which are conducted, many different festivals, which are conducted. Seeing them is also a very important limb of devotional service. Ratastam ye nirikshante kautikenapi keshavam devatanam gana sarve bhavanti shvapachadayah. The Bhavishyotara Puran says the dog eaters and other low persons who joyfully see Keshava on his chariot all become associates of the Lord. Like that. So even taking joyfully seeing the festivals like the Ratha Yatra is a very potent limb of devotional service. Adi Shabdena Puja Darshanam. The word Adi refers to seeing the worship while the Lord is being worshipped. So either in the form of Aarti or even dressing. Sometimes in some temples, their lordship is being dressed in front of your eyes. If you're fortunate. Like for example, in the Hari temple in Govardhan, Haridev is one of the deities who was installed by Vajranab. In that Haridev temple, if you go, or even in Jagannath Puri also sometimes, they will dress their lordships early in the morning. I think they're just before Mangalarti around 5 o'clock in the morning. If you go to Haridev temple, you can see, their lordship, the pujari very lovingly, with the curtains open for all of us to take darshan. He dresses the deity right in front of all of us. It's a very privileged darshan. So we were very fortunate, once I had this opportunity, and it was so nice actually. Someone told that, in Haridev Mandir it happens, and we were staying in Govardhan. So then we planned, and the next day early morning, we woke up early, and then we just ran to Haridev Mandir, and we were fortunate enough to sit and chant in front of the deities, taking darshan of Haridev ji being dressed very lovingly by his pujari, like that. So seeing any other form of worship also. So okay, someone says, Monica Mataji says we can see this in Dwaraka also, and someone says that we can see it in Jagannath Puri also. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So Pujitam Pujyamanam Manam Va Yapashed Bhaktito Harim Shraddaya Modamanastu Supi Yoga Phalam Labet. He who sees the Lord with devotion, faith, and joy after he is worshipped or while he is being worshipped attains eternal service to the Lord, says Agni Puran. Okay, so taking darshan of the Lord while he is being worshipped, that is also a very potent limb of devotional service. Any discussion points before we move on to the next limb? So the next limb is Shravanam, very important, hearing. Shravanam nama charita gunadinam shrutir bhavet. What is Shravanam? Hearing. Shravanam means listening to the name, pastimes, and qualities of the Lord. That is called as Shravanam. So first he is going to give proofs for each of these types of Shravanam. First, he is going to give proof for Nama Shravanam, hearing the name of the Lord from Garuda Puran. Samsara Sarpadashta Nashta Cheshtai Veshajam Krishneti Vaishnavam Mantram Shrutva Mukto Bhaven Naraha. Shrutva Krishneti Vaishnavam Mantram. Hearing the Vaishnava mantra Krishna. Eka Bheshajam. Bheshajam means medicine. Eka means is the one powerful medicine. Samsara Sarpa Dashta Nashta Cheshta is a medicine to counteract the bite of the snake of samsara. And Mukto Bhaven Nara. So, hearing this Krishna mantra, it acts as the medicine not only to counteract the bite snake of samsara, but it also leads to liberation. So, what is that verse? In Mukundamala Stotra, there are many verses which has some similar meaning. Anyways, there is one verse which says that what is that verse? That Himaushadam Prichasi Moda Dhurmate Niramayam Krishna Rasanam Piba. It says Idam Shariram Parinama Peshalam Padatyavashyam Shatachandi Jarjaram Kimaushadam Prichasi Moda Dhurmate Niramayam Krishna Rasayanam Piba. Kulashekar says that Idam Shariram Parinama Peshalam. This body is bound to get transformed, mostly in a way which is not pleasant. Patatyavashyam, and it is certainly going to fall down. Shata Sandhi Jarjaram, with hundreds of our joints becoming decrepit and suffering from diseases like arthritis. Himaushadam Prichamuda Durmate. What kind of medicine are you searching for, you foolish person? Niramayam Krishna Rasayanam Piba. There is one broad spectrum antibiotic, one medicine for all diseases, and it's effective also. But generally, broad spectrum antibiotics are not very effective for specific ailments if they are very deep rooted. But Krishna Rasayanam, the nectarian beverage of Krishna's name, is not like that. It is broad spectrum also, and at the same time, it is the most effective in curing that disease also. Kimaushadam Muda Durmate Niramayam Krishna Rasayanam Piba. Here, this nectarian beverage of Krishna, it will act as the ultimate medicine, which means it will help you transcend birth and death only. Like that. So this is Nama Shravanam, a verse from Garuda Puran. Next, about Charitra Shravanam. Charitra Shravanam means hearing about the qualities or the pastimes of the Lord, hearing about the pastimes of the Lord, Charitra. This is a verse from the 4th canto, 20th chapter. This is Narada Muni speaking to King Prachina Barhi, I guess. Yeah. Yatra Bhagavata Rajan Sadavo Vishadashayaha Bhagavad Gunanu Katana Shravana Vyagra Chetasaha Tasmin Mahanmukarita Madhubit Charitra Piyusha Shesha Sarita Paritasravanti Taye Pibantya Vitrushonagada Karnais Tannas Prashantya Shanakrit Bhayashoka Mohaha. So he says Yatra Bhagavata, where there are devotees, Sadhavo Vishada Araha. Sadhavo means those who have perfect conduct. Vishada Ashayaha means who have very pure hearts. Wherever there are devotees with proper conduct and pure hearts, Shravana Vyagra Chetasa, who are very, very eager to hear, like all of you, right? Bhagavad Guna Anukatana, who are very eager to hear the discussions of the qualities of the Lord. So wherever there are pure-hearted persons with proper conduct who are very eager to hear the discussions of the qualities of the Lord, what does it lead to? Piyusha Shesha Saritaha. It profuse streams of nectar, Madhubit Charitra, of the pastimes of the Lord, Mahat Mukarita, which is emanating from the mouth of very exalted devotees, Parita Sravanti, it flows everywhere. Wherever there are eager listeners, it attracts Krishna Katha from all directions. And ye pibanti, and those who drink that nectar, Gada Karnehi, with firm ears. Firm ears means eager ears. Those who drink this nectar with eager ears, Avitrusho, with constant thirst, O king, Nas Prashanti Ashana Trid Bhaya Shoka Moha. They will not be touched by hunger, thirst, fear, lamentation, and delusion. So wherever there is eagerness to hear Krishna, that eagerness attracts Krishna Katha from all the directions. And when that Krishna Katha is eagerly heard, it elevates a person, it makes a person transcendental to hunger, thirst, fear, lamentation, and delusion, like we see in the case of Parikshit Maharaj. So this is the glories of Charitra Shravanam, hearing the pastimes of the Lord. Then there is Guna Shravanam, hearing the qualities of the Lord. Yastuttama shloka gunanuvadaha sangiyate bhikshnamamangalagnaha tameva nityam shrunuyada bhikshnam krishne malam bhaktim abhipsamanaha. So this is from the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishne amalam bhaktim abhipsamanaha. The person who desires pure devotional service to Lord Krishna, Shrunuyat, he should hear Uttama Shloka Guna Anuvadaha. Person who desires pure devotional service to the Lord or who wishes to progress on the path of pure devotional service should hear the narrations of Lord Uttama Shloka's glorious qualities. Yastu Abhikshnam Sangiyate, which when constantly chanted, Amangalagna, it destroys everything that is inauspicious. It destroys everything that is inauspicious. Tameva Nityam Shrunuyad Abhikshnam. On a daily basis, the devotee should regularly listen to the narration of Krishna's glorious qualities. So this is about Krishna's Guna Shravanam, hearing the qualities of the Supreme Lord. Any discussion points before we move ahead? So Shravanam is very critical limb of devotional service. It's one of the most critical limbs of devotional service because Shravanam actually empowers the other limbs with faith. Actually, when we hear the glories of all the different limbs of devotional service, through hearing we get faith. and it is faith which empowers the limbs. So therefore, Shravanam in that sense becomes a very foundational and critical limb of devotional service. Like that. Okay, if there are no further discussion points or questions, we will move on to the next limb of devotional service, which is Tat Kripa Ikshanam, expecting the Lord's mercy. Very famous verse from the 10th canto, prayers offered by Brahmaji. Tattenukampam susamikshamano bhunjana evatmakripam kritam vipakam Kritbhagvapurbir vidadan namaste jivetayo mukti pade sadaya bhak. So he says, Yaha, that person, te anukampam su samikshamanaha. So, te anukampam susamikshamanaha can mean who eagerly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him. That is one meaning. Another meaning of susamikshamanaha means, ikshamanaha means to see. Samikshamanaha means to perfectly see. Susamikshamanaha means to clearly, perfectly see te anukampam, your mercy. If one learns to see the mercy of Krishna in all circumstances, bhunjana eva atmakritam vipakam, while seeing all unfortunate situations, all painful situations to be caused due to one's own inappropriate use of free will. Bhunjana eva atmakritam vipakam. My suffering is because I misused my free will. But even in that suffering, he is able to see the mercy of Krishna, who is utilizing that suffering to pull me closer to his lotus feet. So, one learns to see the art of Krishna's merciful hands even in painful situation. I deserve worst, but Krishna is so merciful that he is giving me less punishment, and even that less punishment, he is using it to pull me closer to his lotus feet. How merciful. This is anukampam susamikshamano, very clearly seeing the mercy of Krishna while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds. Vidadan namaste, because he is seeing mercy of Krishna, the merciful hands of Krishna, even in painful situations, the person very gratefully offers obeisances using his hrid, vag, vapurbir, using his heart, words, and body. And again he offers obeisances to Krishna. Thank you, Krishna. You have saved me. Saha jiveta, one who lives his life in gratitude because he has learned the art of seeing Krishna's merciful hands even in painful situations. One who lives his life in this way, in gratitude. Yaha, actually Yaha should come here. Saha should come here. He becomes Saha Dayabhag. He becomes the heir apparent. He becomes qualified to rightfully inherit mukti pade. He becomes he develops the right to inherit Krishna, who is the shelter of liberation. Jive tayo mukti pade sadaya bhak. Gratitude. One who is grateful even in suffering, because he has learned to see the hands of Krishna. The very fact that this is mentioned as one of the 64 limbs of devotional service means that a sadhaka should practice it. He should practice it. My suffering, even in suffering, Krishna's mercy is involved. I am not able to see, but Krishna is benevolent. Krishna is omniscient. He perfectly knows what I need to come close to his lotus feet. Krishna is omnibenevolent. He wants the best benefit for his devotees, including myself. He is omniscient. He perfectly knows what I need. He is omnipotent. He is perfectly capable of giving me what I need. He is omnipresent. Wherever I may be, he is there to help me. So when one internalizes this understanding and practices to see Krishna's mercy even in painful situations, and not just seeing means to express gratitude. Express gratitude through Hrid Vag Vapurbir, through heart, words, and body, again and again. He owns Krishna. He becomes the owner of Krishna. Jivetayo mukti pade sadaya bhak. So one has to learn, one has to practice this limb of devotional service, expecting the Lord's mercy, learning to see the Lord's mercy, trusting that his mercy is there, even in apparently painful situations. Pain is because of my own misdeeds, but Krishna is the most skillful personality that he can use unfortunate situations to bestow the greatest fortune. So therefore, I have every reason to express my gratitude to Krishna while lamenting my own fallen state. There is every reason to celebrate the mercy of Krishna while lamenting my own fallen state. That is Tat Kripa Ikshanam. That is what this verse talks about. While lamenting one's fallen state, one is simultaneously celebrating the mercy of Krishna. Hridvag Vapurbir Vidadan Namaste Jive Tayo Mukti Sade Mukti Pade Sadaya Bhak. Often quoted by Srila Prabhupada. Gratitude is the key. A heart without gratitude is like a barren land. So without gratitude, there cannot be humility and other good qualities actually. So this verse talks about gratefully expecting and accepting the Lord's mercy in whatever form it manifests. So here Srila Jiva Goswami writes, in this verse, two different sadhanas, expecting the glance of mercy and offering obeisances. Because he's Hrid Vag Vapurbir Vidadan Namaste, he is offering obeisances also, are mentioned together to glorify their exalted positions. They should be both understood to have great results. Atma Kritam Vipakam means happiness and suffering that occur during the performance of bhakti. Like that. A secondary unsought result of bhakti is happiness, and the result of aparadha is suffering. Okay. So, experiencing both of these results from his bhakti, Atma Kritam Vipakam. Vipakam means actually fruit. Atma Kritam means whatever one has performed. So, fruit of his own actions. He sees happiness and distress as fruit of his own action. And in experiencing that, he sees the mercy of Krishna. The devotee sees this clearly and accurately as your mercy. He knows that the happiness and distress that he is experiencing stems from the Lord's mercy alone. It is just like a father who sometimes makes his son drink milk and sometimes bitter juice made from nimba leaves. Like my father, when we used to be young, he used to feed us a lot of sweets, but every once in a while, monthly once, he used to do deworming for the children, bitter medicine in order to purge out all the worms in the intestines, So the father knows what is best. Even that bitter juice is for the benefit of the child. I do not know, but the Lord, like a father, knows what is good and bad for me. And thus, sometimes he embraces and kisses me, and sometimes he slaps me. I, his devotee, I have no power at all over karma and time. He alone, by his mercy, makes me experience happiness and distress and makes me serve him. The devotee considers his situation in this way, in the manner of King Prithu. So King Prithu says, King Prithu, when the Lord becomes very pleased with Prithu Maharaj's worship, he tells Prithu Maharaj, oh my dear Prithu Maharaj, I am very pleased with you. Please ask for any benediction, I am willing to give you. So Prithu Maharaj says, I will not read the verse, I will read the translation. He says, Yata chared bala hitam pita swayam tata tvameva arhasi na samihitum. He says, my dear Lord, in future, never ask this question to your devotees. Don't ask them what benediction you want, because if they are foolish, they may end up asking something what is not good for them. At least you don't ask me. You give me whatever you think is best for me, just like a father knows what is best for its child. The father does not always ask the child, would you like to take medicine? He does not ask. He gives. So similarly, yata charet bala hitam pita swayam tata tvameva arhati na samihitum. The same way, you know what is best for me, my Lord. You give me whatever you think is best for me. Like that he says. So that is the mood of the devotee. Accepts everything with a grateful heart. Revealing himself daily to the Lord, offering respects with mind, words, and body, passing his life while not being unduly tormented, the devotee becomes the rightful claimant of mukti or liberation from samsara, and pada or service at the Lord's lotus feet, like that. As remaining alive is the cause of a good son and receiving his inheritance, so the devotee remaining alive in this world with steadiness on the path of bhakti is the cause of his receiving freedom from samsara and service to the Lord. Mukti pade sadaya bhak. Okay. I am really sorry. I didn't realize that I had gone over time. But still, we will take one question and then we will end today's discussion. Mother Gail.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Yeah, in this verse, when the devotee is saying, I am suffering from my misuse of free will,
Mhm.
I just need to hear it confirmed that devotee, he is saying that knowing that it is Krishna who is personally taking control of his life, and it's not that his suffering, of his material distresses and happiness is not due to karma, even though it may appear so.
That is why
He's
here, if you read the second line on your screen right now, what is written? The results of aparadas are suffering. So when he sees suffering, he reads it as, oh, I must have committed some offenses. This is not karma. So, so the devotee, see, if the devotee thinks that his suffering is due to his karma, then why should it generate gratitude in his heart towards Krishna? So,
yeah, I don't know. This is, I mean,
so
yeah, this is a confusing statement for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's the point. So if the devotee thinks my happiness is due to my karma, my suffering is due to my karma, then why should he feel grateful to the Lord? What is the role of the Supreme Lord? Why is Brahmaji telling that Hridvag Vapurbir Vidadan Namaste, which is with his heart, words, and body, he again and again offers obeisances. Why? Why would he do it if he thought everything was due to his karma? What is the need to express gratitude to the Supreme Lord?
Right.
Because he sees, even though my suffering is due to my own offenses, but even in that there is intervention of Krishna. Even through giving me suffering, he wants to bestow some mercy on me. Just like the father, even by giving the painful, uh, bitter juice, even through that bitter juice, he wants to benefit his son. So similarly, Krishna, even through giving suffering, which may be due to my own commission of aparads, but even in that, Krishna does not want to uh, let go of me. Even he wants to utilize the suffering to benefit me. That is what generates gratitude in the heart of the devotee.
Okay, but the so the suffering that comes from sin, that's the jurisdiction of karma, right? But the suffering
Yeah,
that comes from um aparads, that is, I guess, Krishna's jurisdiction.
yeah. As long as the aparads are very, if they become very serious, and then it may go outside the jurisdiction of Krishna and it may enter into the jurisdiction of karma. If it becomes serious, very serious offenses, then one may go out of bhakti only.
But the suffering that this devotee in this verse is suffering, couldn't it also be a result of sin rather than aparad? Which these two words, they are a little bit blurred, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sin is in one sense like misuse of free will. But even though, yeah, it could be a result of a sinful activity. Um, but even in for devotees, even that has little bit of offense in it, because that sin is caused due to being attached to material enjoyment, despite hearing so many instructions on this matter. You know, the it is also an offense to be sorry. What is that? Um, to be materially attached even after understanding so many instructions on this matter is a
yes.
sin offense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, I mean, just so the devotee in this verse, he sees himself as, even though Krishna is the ultimate controller, right? He does see himself as, I guess, the immediate cause of his suffering, because he is the one who committed the aparads.
He sees himself as the only cause of suffering, and he sees Krishna as being deft, skillful, and benevolent to use even this suffering for my benefit.
Well, the only cause of suffering, Krishna is the controller. You know, if it weren't for Krishna, he
He
wouldn't
is
be
the
suffering.
controller, but the devotee is humble enough to see that I am suffering means it must be due to my own, I must have committed some offenses. And Krishna is allowing a token suffering to come upon me. Otherwise, was suffering, but Krishna is allowing a token suffering to come upon me. In that way, he sees mercy of Krishna, and at the same time, he sees his own
Misdeed. Or something.
misdeed also, like that.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. So thank you all very much. I really appreciate. We almost went more than 15 minutes over time, but none of you dropped out, even though it's quite late. I apologize, and I wish to express my appreciation and gratitude to all of you. It's Thank you very much. This is quite inspiring. Seeing, as we saw today, Shravana Vyagra Chetasa, this is actually Gada Karnai, with firm ears, Avitrisho, with constant thirst. I mean, this is a very humbling experience for me, honestly speaking. So I wish one day I become qualified to speak with this kind of eagerness, with the eagerness you are showing to hear. And I wish to one day develop this eagerness to hear also, actually. So I wish to express my gratitude and thank you all very much for being so sincere. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami Pad ki jai, Shri Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai, Shri Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu ki jai, Shri Bhakti Aloka ki jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna.